Hello, and welcome to the Path of Most Persistence. This is a place where we hear and share tenacious stories of overcoming obstacles with our partners who dare to share a bit of their own personal paths. Alejandro Perez is a third-year student attending the University of Texas at San Antonio, studying data science and statistics with a minor in mathematics. His intrigue for data science and data modeling stems from his interest in various applications of data analysis. Currently, Alejandro is interning under Commissioner Demerson for the Texas Workforce Commission as a public policy and communications intern. His internship has provided him the opportunity in assisting with draft public policy reports, evaluation of current policy and statutes, and becoming knowledgeable of current House bill items. Alejandro is looking forward to pursuing a master's in data science and statistics and maximizing his career path. Alejandro, it's such a joy having you on today with us.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me here.
This is really exciting. We're in such a good fortune that we're in a position where we have on lots of impressive individuals, guests on from many different walks of life. But I have to tell you, even with the most impressive, I enjoy speaking to young people the most because I love hearing about your experiences thus far and what you plan for your future. So, to begin, we just recently met.
Yes. I know we met. Commissioner Demerson got us together. It was at the Texas Interns Unite Conference in August there at the state capitol. So it was great to meet you and explore. I was telling Demerson, the other intern, that this was a great opportunity to meet other professors, other faculty from different universities, and people within, I guess, his realm of working with employers. So it was great to meet you and all the other for faculty and professors there. So thank you so much.
Oh, absolutely. And of course, it was an impressive gathering. I think the commissioner and the whole leadership team, because I think it's not just the Texas Workforce Commission,
right,
but there are a few other
right,
agencies involved. Can you talk a little bit about Texas Unite?
Yeah, so I believe Commissioner Demerson mentioned that this was started previously. This is my first internship with them for this summer. So last summer, the interns actually got together and they started get the ball rolling for Texas Interns Unite. And it's a great opportunity for interns within the state of Texas, to meet and to explore, what other interns are doing for their summer internships or fall or spring, and to meet with employers. And, Commissioner Demerson loves to use the example of this is a great path for interns to explore options within their workforce and to, figure out what they want to do in life and whether they, like what they're doing in their internship or if they want to try something else. So it's a great opportunity for interns to, just explore other opportunities and meet with other interns.
And it's always so well thought out. I think at least for this year, this series, that was perhaps the third event?
I think it was our third event.
Okay.
It may have been our second actually,
okay,
but yeah, it was one of our first couple events, and I think Commissioner Demerson definitely wants to start it back up again in the fall, and then for the summer again for the 2023 year.
Well, you can tell it's very well thought out, and not only with the diversity of the interns that were there, but also the invited guests, the employers that were there. So I know that it wasn't just something that just came as an idea that popped. It obviously had a lot of planning and a lot of thought and a lot of collaboration, again, with other agencies that work there in Texas or that are located in our Texas Capitol in Austin. So seeing you there, I was very impressed because, of course, Commissioner Demerson wanted us to meet. But you also had a speaking role. You had to do some introductions.
Right, yes. I had to introduce some of the speakers there at the Texas Interns Unite Conference, and it was a little nerve-wracking, not going to lie. Me and the other intern, we were given notice about a week ahead, so we went ahead and did our research, obviously, on the speakers, try to gather some information on what are the key takeaways from their career and what they're actually doing right now in the Austin area. So it was a great opportunity to meet you and other speakers there. But yeah, it was a great experience for sure.
Well, you both did an excellent job, but I think, especially as an intern in this position, I think that not only you're probably given some roles or basically directed with some roles, but I know others, it's possibly an opportunity to say yes or no, and especially having to interview folks that are quite high profile, it can be intimidating, but You said yes. What makes you say yes to opportunities and situations?
I think, it's what I've been told from my commissioner. It's really to get the ball rolling. For one, is to first put your name out there and to give yourself a shot, and to give yourself an opportunity to try to do what you want. I guess if that somewhat answers your question.
It absolutely does, because, there's that old saying, you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
But especially with young people, it is really hard to determine what path you should take sometimes and what opportunities you should really capitalize on.
Right.
But I think, like Commissioner Demerson, myself, I always encourage everyone around me, but most definitely young people, to start with the yes, right? Just to allow yourself the opportunity to see if you're capable, if it's of interest to you, and who knows what other opportunities will bring about.
Right.
But I know in your introduction, I just gave a brief overview of what you do with and for Commissioner Demerson. But can you talk a little bit about how long you've been working with the good commissioner, some of your responsibilities, and has your internship ended, or are you still in the middle of it?
Right. So I actually started June 1st with Commissioner Demerson's office with the Texas Workforce Commission. And some of the responsibilities and tasks, we started off with was one, simply attending conferences. I think that was the big thing for me and the other intern, to just get our feet wet and simply get out there and see what the Texas Workforce Commission actually does, and the whole dynamic with the other offices. It's not just the office for employers, but it's the office for labor and the office representing the public. So it was really interesting to see that whole dynamic play out. But also, besides just attending conferences, obviously taking notes down and understanding whenever we go to the commission meetings, understanding what the actual legal terms mean. And that's, convening with the legal team afterwards and understanding, what docket items are meaning and the actual people behind that.
Yes.
And I think after that was, I would say the good chunk of June. July, we actually started to, work on the Texas Texas Interns Unite conference and getting that prepped out, know. So it was a lot of different moving parts, but those are the two main things I would say that we worked on for my internship. And I actually just finished. I finished August 11th. So,
congratulations.
Thank you so much. Me and the other intern, we finished our internship for the summer 2022 year. So we look forward, to. I know they had us actually submit a video and write down a little takeaways, what we thought of the internship. So I want to thank the Texas Workforce Commission for hiring me and the other intern for this summer semester. And, to anyone out there, I would definitely look at applying for that internship. It's a great opportunity, and I loved every moment of it.
So you were required or asked to write down some of those takeaways.
Right.
Can you share some of those takeaways that you scribed?
Yeah, I think one of the big things that I mentioned was the Texas Interns Unite conference and other conferences like that, where we got to meet employers. And I know I keep, re-harping back on that, but really for us interns, I think the biggest thing for us for any internship is getting your feet wet and knowing what you want to get out of it, and also exploring people in that job and what they do. So that was probably the biggest takeaway from me from that internship. Nice.
And you spent your internship with Commissioner Demerson, but surely you spent some time with the other two Texas Workforce Commissioners.
Right. Commissioner Demerson, I remember, this was funny, actually the first week of July, he had us go over and actually meet with the other commissioners, and just simply ask, Commissioner Demerson, he sent us over here, but what do y'all do, We know what Commissioner Demerson does and what his office does, but what is a day-to-day basis? What does it look like for y'all? And Commissioner Alvarez and Commissioner Daniels were kind enough and sincere enough to simply say, well, this is what we do. You can talk to our. They actually also had interns there, so it was very cool that we got to talk with them, and they were actually law students, so they are a little bit farther above me and the other intern, who were both third-year students. So it was interesting to see, what their college experience was like. They went to Texas. I think Commissioner Alvarez's intern went to Texas Tech, and Daniels, I believe she went to St. Mary's School of Law. So it was very cool to just, get your name out there and talk to other interns and see what they think of their internship so far.
Nice. Now, because you were Commissioner Demerson's intern, what did you learn most from Commissioner Demerson?
Oh my gosh, he is a person that is so stoic. I would say that is the one thing that I picture of him as. I think everyone says he's very kind, he's very sincere, and he knows how to interact and how to get things done in the Texas Workforce Commission. And again, his stoicism is something that I think I'm going to keep with me for the rest of my life, because he really is, whenever I think of that, he's a very stoic figure, a very humble for sure, and very gentle person, and someone who I and the other intern, I mean, we honestly aspire to be like. You know, where him from his beginnings in San Antonio to where he is now. So.
Yeah. Well, that's so nice to hear, and I think it's especially important during these times, because no matter if you turn on the news or the radio or whatever, people aren't as collaborative in the way they communicate sometimes, or how they work together. But it's wonderful to hear, and I know that of Commissioner Demerson, that he does have a way about him that is always, I've never heard him say a negative word of anyone. And to me, that is something that I truly hold dear and I appreciate. But that he is able to navigate just living and working in Austin, and with all the politics that would surround him and his office and the work that he does. So he's a standout, I think, in many ways, but certainly how you can get work done in a collaborative way without saying a negative word ever.
Yeah, and just, I mean, piggybacking off of what you said, you know, we live in a very politicized climate right now, and politics are, you know, they have a grasp on everything. But it was amazing to me that Commissioner Demerson never let that, you know, take or put any hold on what he's doing there at the Texas Workforce Commission, and honestly, any of the commissioners as well. Absolutely. They never let that, you know, interfere with their work.
Nice.
So it was definitely refreshing to be there and to witness that, for sure.
So learning that about Commissioner Demerson, what about the Texas Workforce Commission as a commission, as an organization? Did you always know the mission, the goal of the commission, or was it a learning experience for you as well?
Right. So my uncle, he actually was the one who introduced me to Commissioner Demerson. He was previously one of the chairmen for the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce there in Austin. So he actually introduced me to him. And so I had previously known about the Texas Workforce Commission, but I would say I did definitely a bulk of the research whenever I was first applying for the internship and trying to get a grasp of what their goals are, what their mission statement is, obviously, and what the commissioners do on a day-to-day basis. So yeah, I guess if that answers your question at all, I definitely did a lot of my research on the back end whenever I was definitely applying and looking at other internships, not just that one. So.
Well, that's so important. I think that's important for anyone that's aspiring for an internship or any type of position, quite honestly, to do your homework.
Oh, absolutely.
For those with whom you want to work, right?
Right.
You need to know.
This was it was a 2.5 month long internship, so definitely I wanted to understand what the mission statement was, what their goals were and intentions, and feel comfortable with what I'm doing, and who I'm working for.
Nice. So let's pivot a bit. We've spent some time talking about your internship and the Texas Workforce Commission, but now let's focus more on you. So you're in your third year.
Right, yes.
And I want to know, did you always aspire to work there in Austin in that type of capacity? Right. What has been your college experience?
Oh my gosh. My time at UTSA, I'm sure, as a lot of third-year students would know, my first year was taken away by COVID. So I was working, I was doing all my schoolwork from home and taking all remote classes. So my second year, this past year, it was amazing to me that I was put in the position as a freshman. This pretty much was my first year on campus, right? So it was definitely an experience, and I had a great time, a wonderful time there at UTSA. They have great faculty there, great staff, and actually my resume, I mentioned that I was a peer mentor there. So it was interesting for me to get in touch with some of the students that were coming into their first year, actual freshmen, and what they thought of their classes and any advice I can give them, honestly, any advice or anything that they could take away from their first year and that they should be doing this or maybe not necessarily doing that. So it was a great time for sure.
That's wonderful. So once you finish up and you graduate, you complete all your your coursework to get your bachelor's degree.
Yes.
What are your plans after that?
Right. So I plan on attending grad school. I know you were talking to me about the Bush School here for government, but I was looking at, definitely wanting to become a data analyst. So that requires a master's degree in data analytics, which is something that, I'm definitely focused on. Nice. Again, as you mentioned, I'm in my third year, so I definitely need to be pacing out and definitely, making sure I'm on schedule to finish and what comes after that. So definitely prepping that out for sure.
Oh, that's so important. That's excellent. Now, for us, for the Nuclear Power Institute, we spend quite a bit of resource, time, and talent on encouraging students, specifically secondary students, pre-K through 12, to go the route of STEM, science, technology, and engineering, and math. So I love talking to young people that are currently on that path. You have a background in math, you're pursuing that. Can you tell us how it was that you chose that path?
Yeah, absolutely. I think my first foothold in STEM was probably, I want to say during my elementary school years. They had a STEM program at my local elementary school in Austin for robotics. And honestly, that is what I think of whenever I think of STEM. How did I first get into it? That was my way, I think.
I'm just very interested to know, did you always know math was your subject?
Yeah,
was it easy for you? Did it come easily to you?
Right. I would say honestly, no. It's funny because the degree path that I'm on, it's pretty heavy in math course load. So I would say I definitely had to study and take my time to really understand the fundamentals. Going through algebra, pre-calc, calculus 1, calc 2, getting that steady foundation. I would say that's the most important thing. Those are your building blocks for your career. So you have to know those, and you have to have a strong foundation, or else everything else will fall. I think that's one thing that I've definitely learned, is making sure you study, but you understand the material, and not necessarily just get the grade you want because it's the grade you want, but understand it, and take
so that you can apply it.
Right, absolutely, absolutely, and take it with you.
Well, and thank you so much for being honest, because I think a lot of times when I ask people similar questions about how they selected their path and if it came easy, some people will say, "Oh, yes," but there is such value when people are able to articulate that, no, it wasn't always easy. It hasn't always been easy. So for me, that makes me even more curious about your persistence. How did you stay persistent in that path when it wasn't as easy as maybe some other subjects may have been for you?
Right. I think one thing that I always remember is, if it was easy, everyone would be doing it, right? And that's something that always stuck with me. I think my dad told me that when I was, just graduating high school and moving to college. He always told me that, to stay with it, stick it out and see what happens. Some good may come out of it. But I would say definitely studying. Study habits I learned probably in high school. The middle of high school, I would say I definitely, tried to anchor down whatever you're studying, whatever you want to study in college or elsewhere in the trade schools or whatever it may be. Make sure you have a strong study routine and you stick to it. I know there's various different studying ways or techniques you can do, but stick with one and make sure you're able to complete it. I guess if that answers your question again.
It does answer the question. Now I have to dig even more, because the understanding of what study is a little nebulous.
Right.
Because just speaking for myself, I wasn't the best at studying.
Right.
When I was in high school, I did what I needed to do, but it wasn't until I went off to college that I thought, I might need to study.
Right.
And then realizing that you need to study is one thing, but actually trying to figure out what that looks like is a little bit different. So was it easy for you to find that study pattern, what it looked like to study, or how did you negotiate or figure out what studying would look like for you, and how, or really what type of discipline it took to do what you needed to do to get it done?
Right. I mean, I'm sure your viewers are familiar with the Cornell note system taking, and that's what I use mostly in high school for a lot of my classes. But I think, like you said, it depends on your major. I would say it's a very vast array of different study techniques. And for me, what I found out, for taking a lot of statistical classes and mathematics classes, is using example problems and doing them over and over and over again until you understand the actual problem and you understand how the problem works and how to find that answer. So that's what works for me, I would say. But again, I remember taking Intro to Biology and General Chemistry, and for those classes, I did use the Cornell system note taking. And I mean, honestly, that's what I would probably. I guess that's what stuck with me the most for taking those classes.
Well, that is really helpful. Now, for our audience, there might be many listeners that don't know that system, the Cornell note system. So can you talk a little bit about it or where you found it?
Right. So actually, when I was in high school, my junior year, I had a teacher, Miss Albrock, and she was my AP bio teacher. And she's the one that actually told me about the system, and that's what ended up, helping me and definitely assisting me with the class itself and understanding, biology, the study of life. It's very complicated and it's very detail oriented. Yes. So it definitely helped me, breaking down the actual subject matter and, any vocabulary, any type of details or notes you want to take. And at the very bottom of the page, she would always have us write a summary of what we learned in that chapter or for the page or whatever it might be. So that's something that definitely helped. For your viewers out there, I'm not sure, again, if you're familiar with that, but that is what helped me get through those harder classes for biology and chemistry.
Thank you for sharing that, because probably many of our viewers aren't familiar, and you just found that online, I suppose.
Yeah. Yep. And it was honestly that is what helped me get through those harder classes for sure.
Nice. So going back a little bit further, so we talked about being in high school a little bit, but in high school you were in many different organizations. You were in debate. You were successful at that. You were also nominated and went off to Boys State.
Right. Yes.
So
2019.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah.
And I want background on you too, Alejandro. I want to know, ever since you were just a little,
right.
maybe in elementary school, did you enjoy school? Did you like school? Did you get that positive feedback at school that you were a good student?
Right.
What was your experience?
I think to answer your first part of the question, so yeah, I did public forum debate for my high school years. It was a great experience there for Dripping Springs. We have an amazing coach, Mr. Davey Holmes. He's a fantastic coach. And after that, I think it was the 2019 year, I got nominated for Texas Boys State, so that was definitely a phenomenal experience. We got to room there at UT Austin, so that was my first, type of a view into what dorm life would be like, staying with a roommate, and obviously, working with the American Legion. What's that like? And I remember I had a couple friends that were nominated as senators, so they got to go work there in the Capitol, and we would take treks down there, and it was an amazing summer. That full week was fantastic. And then I guess to answer your second part of your question, I think for me, school was something for my first, I would say, primary and during middle school, or during the early part of middle school, it was definitely more of a struggle. It was more of a chore, I would say. And I never really figured out, why I'm having to study when I get home and why I'm having to do homework, right? It was just something that, everyone did, and you just got through it, right? I would say I did have this one teacher, though, 8th grade, for a science course. Her name was Mrs. Kranikar, and she was she taught biology and chemistry and some other science studies, but she was an amazing teacher, and I think she's the one who really taught me, focused her interest in STEM, and she's the one who, brought to my attention why it's important to study science and why you should, and why, that is the future, and that's where everything's going in STEM direction. And so I would say she was one of the teachers that, when I think back, that was the teacher that had a profound impact on me. That was one of them, for sure. And she taught me, study's not necessarily a chore. Another teacher, thinking back, was Miss Sahara. She was my sophomore year English teacher. And I actually, out of all the studies that I did for, I believe it was social science, mathematics, science, and then English. English was the one that I always struggled with the most. And she was my English teacher. And she had us reading some, in my opinion, some pretty difficult books for where we were at, But she knew that through reading those books and analyzing them, you would have a better appreciation of our course and future novels you may read, right? She's the one who taught me really the deeper meaning in books and stuff like that. So that's another teacher that I would say had a profound impact on me, and someone that I still remember to this day and probably will for the rest of my life.
Well, thank you for acknowledging those educators and especially saying their names. I think it's very important because, as you probably have realized, that educators aren't always appreciated for what they do and how hard they work.
Right.
So it's always, I think, for an educator, one of the, if not the best gift a former student can give them is just that acknowledgement that they did leave something with them, that
Absolutely.
perhaps they planted a seed. And because we do have educators that listen in, what would be some advice to educators, maybe especially as we go into this new academic year, what they could do or continue doing for students that may not be overly eager academically?
I would say find what interests that student and really focus in on what I can do to grab their attention, to hold it for the remaining of the year, and to keep them interested. I think that's one big thing that everyone says is to keep them interested in their studies and make sure that they know the impact, it can have on them for the rest of their life, and find something that interests them. I think when students find something that interests them, they're obviously more eager to learn about it. They're more eager to what I can read about it. What else can I do to further understand this subject?
That's nice. That's part of the human condition, and especially even with the little ones, it's same applies.
Right.
If it's of interest to you, it's easier to take.
Absolutely.
It's easier to take.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking of, again, all the educators we work with and all the students that are involved in our programming, and of course just our own understanding of education and background. I know that those middle school years can be really tough, not only, of course, academically, but just in the whole maturation process. For male students, female students, they all have their own struggles, perhaps. But what can educators and even parents do to help keep middle school students when it seems like society starts telling young people, or they just start feeling amongst their peer groups, that maybe studying or being academically minded isn't cool. Maybe they need to focus on this rather than that.
Right.
Did you experience anything like that? And if you did, if you would share, but also how can educators and parents keep their children focused in that way?
Right. I personally did not experience something like that. But to answer your second part of your question, I think to keep them focused and to keep them knowledgeable of what they want to become, I think, middle school is a year, you have elementary and you have high school and you have college, and really high school is the important thing whenever you're thinking about career path, right? I think that's the most serious point out of all of those three. And so keeping them, minded of what they want to do in life, and always repeating that to them. And, you have to take these years to grow and to understand what you want to study, I think, and to what you want to do in life. If that answers your question at all.
Yeah, absolutely. And it does, and I think so. Sometimes they just need to understand what's going to take them to the next step. Right. Because sometimes those little ones, if they're 9 or 10, sometimes when they look at high school students, they think, oh my goodness, they're so much stronger and smarter and cooler than I am, and they're so much older. Well, as we know, going through school, those years go by fast.
Oh, absolutely.
And to be a successful high school student, it really helps if you were a successful middle school student. It kind of builds on itself as well.
Right.
I appreciate your perspective for sure. And I'm thinking too, you mentioned mentorship that you have provided yourself.
Yeah, I was peer mentor,
Yeah, so can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so at UTSA this past year I was an academic peer mentor there for the College of Science, and I had the opportunity to meet with first-year students and to meet with them, on a weekly or bi-weekly basis, and to, just sit down with them and have a simple conversation. I know for first-year students it's hard. Yeah. It's very hard for whenever you're in the college setting to, you're expected to do well, to make friends, to join clubs, to join organizations, and to attend career events. You have a lot of things on your bucket list. So it was a good opportunity, for all of us, all the peer mentors, to get with students and to understand what are their struggles and how can we help. What can we do? Do you need to be talking to the academic advisor's office? Do we need to get a tutor involved? Or if there's anything, how can we provide, a better opportunity? And we also hosted events for students. It was like a semi-conference, so we had a couple speakers there that were actually alumni of ours, and they had pursued College of Science career paths. So we brought them back, and we had them speak to some of our students, and so the students could ask them, what's one big takeaway you would take from your college experience here at UTSA, and what do you do? How do you like it? Some of the more job-oriented questions. So it was a fantastic opportunity and a great experience again.
Nice. And no doubt you provided excellent mentorship, leadership, but did you learn anything about yourself as you provided that mentorship?
I did. I think one thing that I did take away from that experience, was what it's like to be a mentor, what is required, and what are some of the questions that students. There was always questions that students were asking that were the same. How can I get involved on campus, or what I can do to better myself in studying or whatever. And so that definitely, I guess, brought things back home to me about what I can do to one, better myself as a peer mentor, but to better myself as a student,
Nice. Well, this is, all very exciting, and I do love hearing your perspective, but I'm trying to be mindful of the time, and as we begin to close out, not that we are, but as we begin, I want to circle back to your internship, because, again, I'm so intrigued probably by, again, your experiences, but what you learned there, and as you incorporate those lessons, that knowledge, those experiences into your daily life, what do you find most interesting as you listen or read the news? And I ask that because this is new knowledge that you're gaining, surely. Mm-hmm. So with new knowledge and experiences, it probably, I'm assuming, that it either heightens your awareness about things, or perhaps it makes you more aware in a way where it has adjusted your current or previous notions about things. So as you listen and hear the news, what is of most interest to you right now?
Right. I think obviously there's a range of current events that are going on right now for this for the summertime. But I think one thing that, just to go back a little bit, with my internship, our commissioner had us, every day we would spend around 20 to 30 minutes just going over the news, and especially working for a state agency, we always got to be mindful of what's going on with the agency in itself, and what's going on in the state, what employers are coming in, what job rates and stuff like that, especially for what I was doing, right? Yes. So it was being mindful of the news. But to answer your question, I think it did bring me a certain level of respect and understanding of what the state does, mm-hmm. And to take that into perspective for anything. I remember I was talking to one of this Commissioner Dimerson's secretary, and she was saying, with the craziness that COVID brought and the unemployment claims, right, their office was just, it was crazy over mm-hmm. there. So it definitely, I would have not known that if I didn't have that internship. So it definitely brought a certain level of understanding of what the state does and what the state provides, and respecting that process.
Thank you for sharing that. And I think, just as a resident of Texas, I so appreciate knowing that they're very diligent to their work. Mm-hmm. And also, as you began, how that was part of the practice of going over the news, making sure that you all were current in situations and listening to the citizens right. of Texas, because that does provide insight to maybe everyday individuals that don't have those experiences or right. those knowledges. So it's nice to know that there is a lot of hard work, thoughtfulness, research that goes that's involved in the whole policy right. making, and as far as programming, the development of all of that. So I appreciate you sharing that perspective.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much again.
So, as we really do begin to close out, I just want to know from you, is there anything that we haven't talked about, or that maybe you had prepared that you thought I might have asked you?
I don't think so. Honestly, you did a fantastic interview, and I loved this experience. I think you touched base on a lot of stuff that are current and previous of my past endeavors, so I appreciate it. Thank you so much again for this opportunity.
Absolutely. And again, I want to thank the Texas Workforce Commission, specifically Commissioner Aaron Dimerson, since he did connect us in that way. Right. But again, the other two commissioners, Alvarez and Daniels, are just spectacular, and I appreciate all their work as well. But for our audience, and maybe you, just to hear yourself say it, what can we anticipate learning about Alejandro in the next few years? What are your goals for maybe the next 5-10 years?
Right. I think, as we mentioned, I think one thing that I do want to pursue is definitely my master's degree. That's definitely on the top of my list. And then after that, I think it's more internships. How else can I get involved in the world and career that I want to pursue? And then I think to add to that, what else can I do? And besides internship work, what else can I do to experience, work in the industry that I want to go into? I think I'm definitely, career oriented per se, and definitely am fully focused on that aspect.
I like that. It sounds like you're keeping your options open.
Thank you.
But willing to do the work.
Absolutely, yes. Thank you.
Well, again, thank you so much for coming in today. It was a pleasure meeting you in Austin and certainly having our conversation today. And I hope that maybe in the next year or two, whenever you're ready to come back, we can have a follow-up conversation to get all the current events that are going on in your life, Alejandro.
Likewise. I was telling you, it's a beautiful campus y'all have here at A&M. It's a wonderful campus and brand new facilities and everything. So thank you so much for this opportunity. Thank you.
We always love hearing that for sure. But to our audience, I hope you've had the opportunity to listen to this entire conversation and all of our other conversations on all of our platforms. And as we end this day, this conversation with Alejandro, I think all of you, like me, wish him the very best, not only personally, but as he achieves his goals and meets all of his expectations. I think it's to the benefit of us all that one succeeds, we all succeed. Thank you and have a great day.